The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Good morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Allison.
How are you doing this morning?
I got my coffee there. Now we've said what we say on every episode.
There we go. Coffee in hand for the story today from... Oh my God, wait. No, we don't have stories today from Sweetie.
I'm sorry, Allison. What are you talking about?
Yeah, the Love Sweetie podcast is absent Sweetie herself for a little bit here. Well, as we teased in last week's episode, so if you missed last week's episode, this is going to surprise you. Sweetie's not writing letters right now. It's the beginning of 1949. She's at home in Iowa with her family, and so she doesn't need to write. However, at the very end of last week's episode, we also learned, and we should say Lewis is absolutely with Sweetie in Iowa because he's 3 years old. So he's definitely with his mom. Lou's not with them, though. Lou, in the beginning of 1949, has returned to the East Coast. So we have once again, it's exactly 3 years later from 46. Sweetie's in Iowa with Lewis, with her parents, and Lou's on the East Coast. But this time it isn't to just find a job and stay at Collingdale with his mom, Sydney. He's there to make money, and he's going to make money in the way he knows best. He's going to get on a boat. That's what he's going to do. So just leave it at that. Now, this whole time, guys, everybody listening into the Love Sweetie podcast, this episode, the next episode, and the one after that, Sweetie's going to be absent as we turn the table and go over to the other perspective, which is what Lou's up to. What's amazing in the collection we have of letters here for the beginning of 1949, because without them, we would have nothing, basically, for the beginning of 1949, is that Lou is going to become a part of the Merchant Marine this year. He's done this before. He has left the Navy. So if people were listening in to the last couple of episodes, he finally left the Navy after serving since 1942. And he's joining now the Merchant Marine to go back to working on oil tankers. And he is going to start cruising the ocean to destinations yet unknown in this podcast, but we will make them known as Lou takes us on the journey.
And this is a very interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
Like what we're seeing now, and we're getting a little bit more in depth with what Lou that is going through. And also we get to hear from him, which is going to be just so awesome. However, like this is actually something that he has done before, correct?
Yes, this is something he's done before. Well, we know that because we have some documentation of him doing this before.
And in the last episode, we had one piece of correspondence from Lou to Jean that said that I'm leaving and, take care of my family for me. He was traveling back east. So we knew that he was going to be going to do something. But I think we really have to call attention to, they went to Iowa to try to make it in Iowa.
Yeah.
And they, throughout the last episode, we learned about different, like the houses they were trying to find. And, Lou was obviously going to be working on some farm program. This lasted, 3 months?
Yeah, about 3 months.
So he's like, he must have salt water in his blood.
I think so.
All I can figure is that it's running through his veins. So it's right now, like it feels like an upheaval. Because we kind of had this trajectory that we were going to go on where Lou was going to be working in a farm. I thought that this would be a whole Chester thing. So to kind of shake it up like this with him being like, you know what? I'm leaving my family. They're going to be in Iowa and I'm going to go and make my way the best way that I know how.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, I feel like things are just, it feels like the water is like really muddy right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
I'm just kind of waiting and hoping maybe with these letters that we can kind of settle things down a little bit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Lou wants to do the best that he can for his family. He wants to make the most that he can for his family. And his skill set and the best opportunities he always has with this, other than maybe some antiquing stuff on the side, which we've been hearing rumblings about, that's for future content. But with regards to ships, this is where he really started going into a career. And he has so much experience. I mean, 1942 to 1948, 6 years in the Navy. And I had thought that that was perhaps all the time that he'd spent around ships and things like that. He was born in 1919. I mean, World War II breaks out in 1941. He joins in 1942. He's what, 23, 22, because he was born in December. 22 at the time the war starts and he enlists. So I thought, well, that's it. That's all of his Navy experience. But there's been some recent documentation that's been uncovered, Jamie, to prove that he was working on ships before this. Now, the other thing that we've known, and I know this just from my father because there's not really documentation of this, is Lou never finished high school. So we think about a person around age 16 or 17 around Philadelphia. What is he doing from age like 16, 17 to age 22? And the answer is he was on ships. And we know this because there are some photos that have surfaced that Lou wrote on the back the year, and they predate 1942. And some of this will be referenced in some of the content coming up. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and show you a few of the photos that we have that are dated. And this one's amazing. This is Lou. This says MS Pacific Sun, Philadelphia. And we see Lou here. And he's a young guy. And that's because this photo was taken in May of 1941. So he's 20 at this point. And he's clearly found his way around a ship because he sends a few other photos over. And the Pacific Sun was an oil tanker. And we know that because he says, here's what the deck looks like looking forward onto the tanker itself. So if anybody was curious what oil tankers looked like in the before World War II, and probably during World War II. This is the top deck of the ship. This is a photo that was taken in Texas in port. So we know he's not in Philadelphia at this point. He's been on the ship for a while. So I think what happened was he got out of high school, and other than a few travels, he basically found himself working on ships around the Philadelphia docks. And what's also really cool is now these photos I'd never seen before. These are tanker trucks from the
Hmm.
40s. So we're used to everybody pulling into if you're in Philadelphia, if you're in my area, the Wawa, right? I don't think
And
Jamie,
if
you
you're in
don't,
my area, the sheets.
the sheets, the fight in Pennsylvania, halfway across the state. But yeah, these are what would refill the stations there, and it says Atlantic because, and that's important because Atlantic is one of the oil companies at the time, and I love the
Well,
old
they don't
car
look
there
like they
and the
know how to
trailer.
park. I'm sorry.
No, no, they don't. I think they're on the sidewalk here. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't.
this is a really interesting photo.
Mhm.
It's very
Mhm.
strange because it kind of looks, I'm this in the era of AI generation.
Yep.
It looks very, but this is an authentic photo
Authentic photo, yeah.
that you have
Mhm.
of, oh
Yep.
wow, that is neat. And it looks like
Yeah.
people are like
Mhm.
intrigued.
Yeah. But notice the white suits to the bottom right of the photo behind the car. There's the Navy sailors. So I suspect this is taken in Philadelphia. That this is the oil tankers, the Atlantic oil tank, not oil tankers, oil trucks in Philadelphia. Now, here's how we know. Now, this photo is not dated, so I would have a really tough time figuring out what exact year this is from. However, this series of photos was saved in an album Sweetie never finished, and she kept them all together between the same pages with certain elements. So she had sorted these photos and put them in a particular place and grouped them all together. So to this date, I've kept them grouped exactly where they are because the indication from Sweetie with no writing at all, and it's the only way to tell that these are from prior to World War II. These are between specifically 1935, 37, and 1941. And based on the car, I'm sure there's some car guys that can look at that car and be like, that car was produced in this year. You could probably even pinpoint. It looks like a pretty new car. and from the oil trucks themselves what year this is. But I suspect this photo is from 40 or 41. And he's taking it. Lou's taking the photo because he's excited to show his family what he's up to. He's working around oil trucks, and oil tankers. So, with all that being said, when he leaves Iowa in the end of 1948 and he says, "Take care of my family for me," which just kind of heartbreaking every time I hear that, he heads to the East Coast and he decides to get on a ship called, to him, the Atlantic Transporter. And he's going to start sailing the ocean as a member of the Merchant Marine. And this leads to a second part of the conversation that I think we have to have, because we don't hear about the Merchant Marine historically too much in the history books. They've been around for a long time. They're around today. Merchant Marine is, consider it like an auxiliary force. It certainly supports the work of the United States Navy, the Department of Defense. And in times of war, it's extremely active. It's going to be delivering supplies, personnel, whenever transports are needed. It's not necessarily the US Navy that's doing the transport, but usually the US government contracting with the Merchant Marine. So they have their own song, they have their own seal. They're commissioned by the United States government to act when they need to act. And in 1949, he joins the Merchant Marine, and they're acting on behalf of the government and with private contractors to go and get oil from wherever oil is to be gotten. So that's how that works. With the Merchant Marine, I will say this, and you know what, I have this really I think touching experience with the Merchant Marine. Well, first of all, before I go into that, I wanted to go into just some statistics here, because the Merchant Marine is best known for World War II. Super, super important. In World War II, there were 250,000 or so civilian merchant mariners that served as part of the military for this transport. So, 250,000 merchant mariners supporting the troops throughout World War II. There is a total listed online that between 1939 and 1945, 9,521 of the merchant mariners died, which is a per capita casualty rate greater than those of each U.S. Armed Forces branch. So, because remember back in the first season, we were talking about the statistics of how many boats were sunk, and it
Yes.
was staggering amount. A lot of them were transport vessels. A lot of those vessels that are being sunk are Merchant Marine.
Mm.
So there might only be so many guys on board, and people are trying to escape and not be a casualty of the war. But they served in their capacity as part of the forces. So it's important to recognize that and honor those, and those that might be listening that have family and friends, ancestors that served in the Merchant Marine, you know, to thank them for their service, because I think it can be forgotten, this kind of support personnel. And one time I was playing I play organ, not well. I'm too short. I can't reach the pedals, but
She's so Allison.
I was called in to play a funeral at the church where I'd been church music director. And wouldn't you know, the person who had passed away, end of life, lived a long life, um, had been a member of the Merchant Marine. And they were doing naval honors, of course. And at the very, very end, they left the music for the prelude and the postlude for the service up to me. And as I was listening, I heard that this individual was in the Merchant Marine. And so I planned a postlude specific for them to just continue into the hymn that I did not see in the program, which was the naval hymn, The Eternal Father Strong to Save. Now, you've heard this if you've listened to the podcast. It plays as at the very end of the 2 bonus episodes of the Naval Air, that instrumental music. You've heard it at the end of episode 45, which is when Bob passed away because he was a member of the Navy, the hymn. It's that hymn, Eternal Father Strong to Save. So I played this as the postlude, as the family continued to file out. And one of the family members came over and said, you know, he would have really appreciated that you played the naval hymn for him. And it's an emotional moment, but I want to bring it up because the Merchant Marine is easily forgotten in the background. And they really, really do a very important service to our country in times of peace and in times of war. Lou's joining it as an ex-member of the Navy at this point in a time of peace. So, just putting it out there, something for our listeners to think about, especially as this episode's coming out right around the 4th of July holiday, right around, we're at the 250th anniversary of the armed services. The Navy birthday is coming up. Don't forget about the support and transport of supplies, because we can't get them to the front without the guys on the boats for World War I and World War II. All right. So a little bit of history. I know this is an unusual episode. So we're going to pick up with Lou's story, and we're going to find out where Lou's headed to. But Lou does a wonderful thing here for anybody that had family that served in the 40s in the Merchant Marine. He's going to tell you what it was like to be on one of these ships. So, without further ado, Lou, writing right before his birthday in 1948, sends a letter to Sweetie.
SS Atlantic Transporter, Philadelphia, PA. December 28, my birthday. My dearest darling Mama, I told you the second assistant engineer came and said he had a job for me to do, so I had to cut the letter short, and I gave the letter to one of the workers on the dock to mail. I hope he mailed it. If he didn't, then you don't even know what I'm talking about, do you? Well, they were taking our fresh water, and he wanted me to give him a hand. All I had to do was watch the tanks and turn off the water when the tanks were full. Well, the water ran so slow that it took almost 3 hours to up the remaining 3 feet into the tank. We were supposed to sail at 1 o'clock, but they changed it to 5 o'clock. Well, we had to work to do such as taking in the water hoses, checking fuel tanks, and a light cleanup in general, so that by 5 o'clock we were through, and I just stood around and watched while we left the dock. I took a good long look at the United States and my family before going into the chow. This ship is like a luxury liner compared to the Sun Oil boats. To begin with, the chow is a lot better. We all eat in one mess hall, and they have a menu for you at the table. Such a menu you have never seen, better than any restaurant I have ever eaten at. I'll get a hold of a couple menus and send them to you so you can see for yourself. The mess boy comes and you tell him what you want, and he goes and gets it for you. You should see the helpings they give you. Just about double orders. I can't eat it all. It's a shame the food they throw away. At night they put cold cuts and cheese out for our evening snack. There are coffee pots to make coffee, and always hot water and tea bags. I guess you can imagine what I do to that. Boy, do I make the hoagies. The staterooms, forecastles, are much better than Sun's, though there are 3 of us in the same room, 3 wipers. There are 2 fine fellows, one from East Lansdowne and the other from Moreton. The rooms are not as low down and near the engine room as Sun's, so that you get less noise and can sleep better. Most of the men live or are near Philadelphia. There's one from Derby and one from Hill. They say like a pretty nice bunch of fellows, mostly young. There are only 4 or 5 older men. The engine room is much better than Sun's ships, about 100% cleaner and much better laid out. It looks more like a generating plant in a large building than a ship's engine. We have a swell chief and a darn good first assistant. The second and third assistants came aboard with me, and they seem like pretty nice fellows too. December 29, 1948. This morning was my first work day, and it was a really good day. Not much to do, mostly painting. We did do some smudging, cleaning with a strong soap. It really does get the grease and oil off and bring the paint up clean and shining. There is very little wiping up oil, to do. As I said, these engines are much cleaner than Sun's. According to the other 2 wipers, that's about all we do. Paint and smudges, excepting for when there are repairs to be made. Then we do the mechanical labor required. I'm glad I waited, for this will be much more pleasant than a trip back with the Sun Oil. Although I would give it up in a minute if I could have you and Lewis back in Norwood, just as we were. This morning I went up and drew my bedding, and this is what we got. 2 sheets, 1 counterpane, 1 blanket, and 1 pillowcase. 2 bars of ivory soap, 1 cake, 1 package of 12 boxes of safety matches, 1 bath towel, and 2 hand towels. This evening we went up to get our sea stores from the shop chest. I got 10 cartons of cigarettes for the whole trip, and a tube of toothpaste and a working cap. The cigarettes are 85 cents a carton, the cap was 80, and the toothpaste was 25, so I spent $9.80 altogether. It will be taken out of my pay when we get back. One of the fellows was telling me that tomorrow we get a duty bag from the Seamen's Institute similar to the one the Red Cross gave me when I went overseas. Do you remember? It's supposed to contain cigarettes, pipe tobacco, combs, razors, sewing kit, and I don't know what else. I'll let you know when I get it. Well, honey, that's all for now, except that I do miss you like hell, and as I said before, I would gladly give it up if I could just have you and Louis again, and I will be just as soon as we get squared away again. I love you more than I can say, and I'll not be happy until I can feel you next to me in our bed in our own home. Good night, my love. I love you, and I'll always love you forever and ever and ever. Love me too, will you? January 1st, 1949. Dearest Mama, Happy New Year, my dear. I was going to write Thursday night, then Friday night, but I kept putting it off until when? Until this gosh darn ship stops rolling. I haven't gotten sick yet, but I'm just on the verge of it. We are up in the North Atlantic, and it is pretty rough. It isn't very cold, though, much warmer than I thought it would be. You see, we are taking the northern route over and the southern route back. Look it up on your map and see if you can follow us. I think we go through the Mediterranean Sea, then the Red Sea, then through the Suez Canal. No one seems to be sure which way we will go. I went up yesterday to get a duty bag. Here's what it was. A very pretty bag given out by the Seamen's Church Institute, and in it was the following: a calendar, a handkerchief, shoelaces, gum, pack of cigarettes, pipe, toothpaste, shaving soap, tube, razor and blades, candy Band-Aids, cough drops, and pipe tobacco. I thought it was pretty nice of them to give them out. Today is New Year's Day, so a holiday and no work. Ordinarily, we work half a day Saturday, so we get 2 days off instead of 1 day and a half. I'm sure grateful for it. It will give me a chance to get over my seasickness. My head has been swimming for 3 days. I've spent most of my time in the sack. I hope it smooths out pretty soon. Well, honey, that's all for now. I'll write later on. I hope I'll be able to mail this from Greece. I'd better keep it down, though, or it will cost a fortune. I do love you a lot, honey, and I miss you terribly. I hope these next few months pass quickly so we can be together soon. I love you. January 2, 1949. Dearest Mama and Louis, please excuse the pencil, but you see the results of the pen. It's not a very good one. It's the one Mom got for Christmas, ballpoint. Today is Sunday, so no work. I just finished my wash. Did I tell you we have a washing machine? It's an old Maytag square tub. It does a good job, though. There's really not much to write about. There's not a thing to do, just read and sleep. There has been no card playing, though I wouldn't play anyway. But I could watch just to pass the time. I understand we are to stop at Gibraltar to take on fresh water. That will be Friday or Saturday. The weather has been real nice. A little cool, but not cold. I guess you are up to your knees in snow. What have you been doing? Maybe we'll get some mail out at Port Said. I hope. I miss you so much, honey, I can't even sleep, and you know that's unusual for me. I'll be damn glad when we get our bills paid and we can get settled again. I'll cut this short and start another. I love you. Daddy.
Yeah. I
I'm
just wanted to
so
let
happy. Oh my goodness. Well, first
Mhm.
thing, personal thank you to Andrew, who is voicing Lou for us.
Mhm.
And he is doing such a wonderful job.
Yep.
Mm.
Mhm.
And then second, so the cadence of Sweetie's letters are much different from the cadence that Lou
Mhm.
uses. So you'll notice in these letters, he like dates it. So he is writing this letter on multiple days,
Mhm.
comes back to it when he can.
Right.
And she's not like that. She's just like, shoo.
Yep. Mhm.
But I think that's really, I mean, that seems, I used to write letters that way too.
Mhm.
So when we go through these letters, that will be the cadence that he takes. Also, I love too this little idiosyncrasy that he has, where
Mhm.
he uses parentheses to kind of further clarify what he's saying.
Yeah, I'm glad he did. Like, not he recognizes that Sweetie really hasn't been on ships before. So when he says forecastles and things like that, or Andrew says sujing, whatever, for wiping the deck.
Mhm.
That's not in standard parlance. So it's nice
No.
that he does this. Hmm.
Yeah, so that's really nice that he is not only defining that for Sweetie, but now defining it for us.
Yep. And you mentioned about his cadence. So there's also a purpose behind the cadence that he has here as well. He can't mail anything out until a number of days elapse because they're in the ocean. So, and there's just no way. I mean, we're so used to modern electronic communications, like, oh, we could send an email each day. You know, you can do that from anywhere at this point. He has to wait to get to port. And he's keeping them on the same paper. I'm going to show you the original letters too, because you can see this. He's keeping them on the same paper because mail is sent and it costs so much to send based on its weight. So instead of taking a sheet of paper, right, and then writing a note, and then taking another sheet of paper and writing a note, well, all those sheets of paper are going to add up and make the mail heavier for the airmail that he wants to send back from either Greece, as he said, or from Port Said, which we'll put on a map for people that are wondering. Don't worry, we're gonna show you exactly and describe for our audio listeners where that is. He's gonna keep writing on the same piece of paper because he's trying to keep the cost down to get it through the mail, through the airmail, to get this back to Iowa. Also, I didn't want to like interrupt him because he was telling his tale, and there's a lot of like setup here, and I love that he describes how the men are living. Just little things like they have a washing machine. I'd never think of that in the 40s, that there's a washing machine on the tanker, you know, because maybe they're just doing their wash by hand. He doesn't leave anything to assumption. I've got the glove on. I think Jamie probably just noticed, because he also said about the menus. He got really excited about the food.
Oh yeah, he was really excited.
Yeah. So I'll show everyone here the original, and we have the envelope too originally, so we can say where this was sent out from. But I'm going to leave that out for now because it's a bit of a spoiler. But this is the original. Now, Lou's handwriting is a little messy.
Just a little. Oh,
Just
my
a little.
dearest darling mama.
Yeah. And then he just runs in. Remember, he said sorry for the pencil at the back. So you can see the change of the pen to the pencil. That's what he's apologizing for. But he wanted to prove to Sweetie that the food was really, really good. And so he did exactly as he said. And he sent the menus.
Oh, cool.
So I don't know. There's something about whenever I'm like reading a book, I love to know what they're eating. And then there's like this whole side thing with like certain series, especially big series, where there's like the companion cookbook that people write. Well, we don't need the companion cookbook here at the Love Sweetie podcast because we have the actual book of what they were eating and everybody can figure it out for themselves.
Are you going to put this up so that we're like,
I'm gonna
this is
put
going to
them
be
on the
on screen
screen
while we talk about it? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm actually going to start sharing screen here in a moment. I just wanted for people to see that these are in hand. They are real.
Sorry, I jumped the gun.
No, you're good. But that's important. Yeah, everything here. This is not a menu created by AI to pretend what they might know. Everything here is real at the Love Sweetie podcast. Also, I would like to note that this ship no longer exists. And some of these companies have merged. These may be some of the only menus from a tanker in 49 that we actually have from these companies. I don't know if they would have kept the menus for 80 years. I don't see it. I don't see why they would have kept it. But we're going to look at what they were eating over the holidays that year and why he's so excited. And this is in addition to his whole boy do I make the hoagies. So
this is breakfast.
This is the breakfast menu. First of all, can we just say breakfast menu? Like, even if you go to a hotel, right? Continental breakfast is just kind of there. No. Breakfast menu in the mess hall. There's a symbol at the top that says the Atlantic Refining Company, Atlantic, and that's why he's considering it SS Atlantic Transporter. You can see that even from the menu, the ship was referring to itself as the Atlantic Transporter. We'll get into why that's a problem in a later part here. Breakfast, December 26, 1948, California melon. Assorted dry cereals, boiled farina. I think that's farina is like a grain of some sort. Fried bacon and scrapple. This is a ship from Philadelphia. So scrapple time. Western omelet, fried potatoes, eggs to order, griddled cake and syrup. That's like your pancakes for those unfamiliar with the term. Dry toast and butter, jams, fresh milk, coffee, cocoa, and hot tea. So that's the breakfast.
Right, well,
menu.
I would like the Western omelet, please, with the fried potatoes and coffee with cream, please.
I will have the scrapple.
Ugh, of course you will.
Yep. So everybody can pick for themselves what they order.
So boiled farina would be like basically like you said it was a grain, so it was like oatmeal
That's
kind of
correct.
look.
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
And so you don't have a dinner menu, right?
I have more menus. So,
Oh my goodness.
oh yeah,
Okay.
this is just breakfast. We're gonna get the whole day of what they're having because he's proving this to Sweetie. So here is I believe this is
It says supper.
yeah, supper because I think supper and then we have dinner, right? So it's
Okay,
this is
supper
fun
and then dinner. Okay.
because we are supping. For supper, same day, cucumber salad, baked ham, pineapple sauce, braised livers. Not as many livers on the menus these days, but that was big back then. Chopped suey and Spanish omelet, baked potatoes, boiled rice, Boston baked bean, spinach and buttered beets, I think, bread
Yeah.
and butter, mixed peach and pears, fruit cake, coffee, and tea. So you've got your nice ham, sort of veggies, boiled
There's a
items.
protein
Mm-hmm.
and liver has
Liver.
so many things that you need. It's nutritionally dense and gives you all of the like vitamins, minerals. It gives you a lot of the vitamins you need, especially vitamin A.
Yep.
So yeah, they're making sure that these boys are not only got the protein, but they're getting their
Mhm.
vitamins too.
Oh, for sure. Yep. They're definitely getting their sun on deck, their vitamin C from that. Or was
Vitamin
it vitamin
D.
D? Vitamin D from the
Vitamin
sun.
D. That's
Yeah,
okay.
that's my knowledge of health
That's
there.
okay. That's why I'm here.
And then here's dinner, same day. So, cracker and pepper pot soup. Now, some of these might be things people have heard of, but have the terminology's changed a little bit in 80 years. Roast pork shoulder, hot roast pork sandwich, beef piccadilly. I have to look that one up. Mashed potatoes, creamed celery,
Ew.
butter, and it says Hubbard squash, so some sort of squash, for all your winter
Mhm.
squash. Early June peas, hot roll, butter, jam, pie, applesauce, iced tea, coffee, and hot tea. So that's the
They were
full
eating
day.
good.
Yeah, they're eating good. And then he's making hoagies. They put out cold cuts in the middle of the night. So he's saying, this is great. I can keep doing this. So,
Well, yes. And too, and he's like,
mhm.
and they waste so much food too.
Yeah.
Cream celery. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. That just sounds gross.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not in for that. So, no, no, no. Yeah. Hmm.
but this is neat because these are probably some of the only menus surviving from that time period.
And we do have two more. He sent a couple more samples. These are handwritten, so they're a little harder to read. I like that the first ones are typed. All of these, by the way, are going to be on the website at www.lovesweetiepodcast.com. This whole section about Lou and the Merchant Marine, the photos that we're going to show because he did take photos. We're about to go into those, and these menus. So they're all going to be there for people to peruse. This one, handwritten, supper December 29th. So this is his birthday menu.
Mhm.
Hearts of lettuce. There's things written here like grilled hamburger steaks because he needs to make his hamburger sandwiches, frankfurters, sauerkraut, parsley, onion, omelet. There's things like buttered French string beans, creamed Brussels sprouts, boiled kidney beans, hot says I think canned corn, yeah, chilled peaches, cake, tea, coffee. So people can read the old menus of the time. And here's the last one that he sent. This is on December 30th of 1948. Apples, pears, oranges, grapefruit halves. This is for breakfast. So they do change up the breakfast orders here a little bit. You can see French toast is listed, hot cakes, syrup. That's your pancakes again, and coffee. But yeah, these five documents, five survive,
Hmm.
might be the only
That's
ones.
cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's neat too, and it shows that like when he was traveling, they didn't have like just the bare minimum. They were eating good.
They were eating well. Yeah. And he says better than the Sun Oil Company, which I'll cut this out if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Sun Oil later became Sunoco. So that's around.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
That makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
And then Lou, and thankfully he labeled these all on the back, he took photos while he was on board as well. So throughout this trilogy of episodes, we're going to get to see Lou's candid photos of the crew and of the things that he's seeing from the ship, which is a historical treasure to have things like this. So I'm going to bring up the first one here. We're not going to show them all at once, of course. We're going to show them in the context of the letters that we have here. But I wanted everybody to see the crew
Hmm.
sort of messing around on board so you can get an idea for these guys because they are eating well and they seem to be eating well. Yeah. And this is the main group of guys that he's hanging around with. So we can see Lou, there's a big I don't even know what that is, but there's a big thing in the back, and he's directly in front of it. So he's in that like third row on the right, looking at this photo. But these are the guys that he's basically staying with. One's actually holding their coffee cup too, so that's great.
Oh, yeah. I see
Yeah.
that. Oh, nice. How appropriate.
Yep. Hmm. And they're out
Well,
here in the middle of the Atlantic, and then they start palling around a bit, and we get to see some of their shenanigans on board. He takes
oh,
pictures
goodness.
of the shenanigans. He thought this was great, that he would just put his head into the this is also why he thinks it's called the Atlantic Transporter, because it's on the what do they call these?
Oh, it's a lifesaver. That's like why lifesavers are called that, right? I don't know. Okay. Well, if somebody wants to correct me, I'm just gonna call it a lifesaver. I don't know.
There we go.
But
But they
anyway,
were
but
on.
he thought this was funny, and actually, this
Funny.
is a really cool picture.
Yeah.
That's neat.
And that brings up the fact where we can say from the menus and from this life buoy, the name is Atlantic Transporter. But if anybody who's listening decides to go do further research on this ship and you start Googling, trust me, I've been there, the SS Atlantic Transporter, it's really hard to find information about this ship because the actual name of the ship is the Atlantic Trader. Somebody mistyped some things, and I think that's their official designation. And I should note at this point that this ship was built in it was ordered in 1943 and built in June of 1945. It was built in Pennsylvania. It was docked at Philadelphia. It was built in Chester County. There was a shipbuilder there. This ship then is renamed at some point in its history, and it has quite a number of decades of history as an oil tanker. It's called the Cove Tide at a
The
later
Cove
point.
Tide.
Cove
Okay.
Tide. And then the Cove Tide is broken up and basically changed for parts in 1979, and so it no longer exists. So I don't know how many photos exist, plus this confusion over the naming, but this eventually becomes the Cove Tide, and it lasts until 79 in service. So if people are wondering about the particulars about the ship, after a lot of research, that's what I've been able to figure out about this one. Looking at a few more photos of the shenanigans, because we can't show you photos of where they're headed yet, because as the letter is, they're just chilling on board at this point. Here's one where Lou's smoking a cigarette, as he mentioned in the story here. They were getting a lot of cartons of cigarettes and all these guys would have been smoking pretty continuously. So he's got a picture of him chilling on the top of the deck,
I
smoking a
wanna
cigarette.
say with his facial hair,
Uh-huh.
he looks a lot like Joe.
Yes. Yes.
Like, yes, this looks a little bit like maybe if Joe was trying to be
Mm-hmm.
like a cool guy, like a cool sailor, like that's what he would do.
For sure. Yeah. But I wanted to show a few for now. We're going to keep going back and forth with the pictures. We'll stop again. We'll look at a few more pictures after the next letter here because he's going to reference a little bit of what he looks like. We don't want to spoil that until he gets to tell everybody what's going on. But
Okay.
oh man, how great. I love those menus. I love them so much. And happy
This
birthday to Lou.
that has to be one of the only menus that has ever survived from this
Oh,
time
for
period,
sure.
like that the merchants means it's a treasure.
Hmm. Now heading into while they're still floating in the middle of the Atlantic.
Atlantic Transporter, Monday evening, January 3rd, our anniversary.
I'm going to pause right here. Hey, Lou, it is December 3rd. You were right the first time. He struck through December and wrote January. This just proves that the guys can't remember when the anniversaries are. Even when they get it right the first time, then cross it out and think it's the other month. So, just calling that. All right, we're going to continue with Lou. Wrong.
It's an Allison.
My darling wife, note above. Gosh, I wish I could be home with you on all of our anniversaries. I guess I let them get by me when I'm home, but honey, I sure do think of them when I'm away from you. I think back 5 years to the job, the girl, and the chaplain. I'm lucky to have you, honey, I've always known that. But I do think of it more when I'm away and without you. You know what they say, absentness makes the heart grow fonder. It isn't just that it's that I have more time to think of you, you know, how nice you are and how lucky I am to have you and Louis. I love you both more than I can say, and I'm just so proud of you as I can be. I'll always love you more and more, and above all, I want you to love me too. Love me, and I'll always love you. We went back to work today, and it was pretty hard after 2 days of just resting and sleeping. I didn't feel a bit like working. Boy, what a life. If only you were here, it would be perfect. I'll tell you though, honey, I don't ever want to be away from you again. When we get settled, we're going to stay settled, even if we have to buy the place. The rumor boys are on this ship too. I don't mean the good who rumor boys either. The old scuttlebutt is really flying. One rumor has us down here for 2 or 3 months, shuttling from Egypt to Persia, and the other has us going right back then to the Alabama shipyard in Mobile, Alabama. So I don't know what to tell you about coming on. Maybe you'd better just stay until we can get all our debts paid off, then come on, and by the time we get there, I'll have made another trip, and we can have a little reserve. What do you think? Well, honey, there's really nothing new to tell you. Nothing to see but the sea. We haven't even seen another ship since we left. We got clean linen again yesterday, same as before. Soap and matches. By the time we get back, I'll have enough soap and matches to open a cut-rate store. Good night for now, sweetheart. Give you a great big kiss for me and tell Louis that Daddy sends his love. I sure do miss him. I keep thinking of that sheepish, sly look he'd give me when I'd scold him. I used to get mad, but now I get a big kick out of it when I think of it. He's some kid. Tell him I'll try to send him something. Did you get the package of candy I sent him? Charms? Good night, my lovely.
So I want to pause here because, oh my gosh, you know how I love love.
Yep.
And
So
this
much
is the sweetest letter. I actually almost feel a little bit bad. I feel like a little bit like we're
intrusive.
intruding on something very special.
Yeah.
But I want to point out, though, they have obviously been talking about what they want to do. And this has been, and he is continuing on with that. And so he's already like kind of in the works, like with how we're doing things. And then they have these debts that they have to get paid off. So she's out in Iowa staying with her parents. So they don't, well, actually, we don't even know. We're not even really sure, are we? We don't get any letters from her, really hear from her or know anything about what was going on during this time period, right?
Yeah, no, it's really difficult. Yeah. At one point, were letters lost in the mail? We know he gets some letters, he references them, but we don't actually see them. They haven't survived. So, and right now he's not getting anything.
Yeah, he's in the middle of the ocean just writing letters until he can mail them. But this is incredibly sweet. And to see too, he's like, being away from her, I do not like this at all. And he's like, no, we're not ever doing this again. And that was something, that a decision that he came to fairly early on in this trip.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, oh, well, you're going to have to suffer through the rest of it first. But again, I want to point out, like, he's taking care of his family the best way that he knows how. And just, this endears me so much to Lou. It's such a sweet thing. And it's such a wonderful example of, of their love. But I wanted to like stop and talk about that. I wanted to stop and talk about that real quick before we go on to the rest of the letter.
Oh, of course. And there's just going to be more love. He keeps sending more love. So we're going to keep melting. I think some of us listening will absolutely keep melting with our emotions as these letters continue.
Tuesday evening, Red Letter Day. Dearest Mama, note above. Today is a red letter day because I took my first good key rap. I've been grunting and groaning since we left. I don't know if it's the food, the salt air, or the rolling motion of the ship, but you know me first thing in the morning, right after that second cup of coffee. I've been trying for days and days, but no score.
I'm just going to pause here and say, how romantic. Thank you, Lou. Right after we...
Never mind.
Never mind. He's a guy. All right, there we go.
But today I'm batting 1,000. Wow. Today, also, we passed the Azores Islands. Not very close. It just looked like a mountain off in the distance. In 3 days, Gibraltar. Then 17 days to Ras Tanura, Arabia. Seems like an awful long time, doesn't it? The sea is fairly calm now, though, and I can sleep a little better. The days seem to go fairly fast. We start at 8, get up at 7:30, then take 20 minutes at 10 o'clock for coffee, then work till 11:45 for chores, back at 1 o'clock, then 20 minutes coffee time at 3 o'clock, then quit to clean up at 4:30. Suppose at 5, by the way, I'm sending you a picture of a mess hall on another ship. Ours is just like it. Note the boy. He is a Filipino mess boy. That's all for this time. I understand it costs $50 to mail a letter from down here, so I'll have to write short note each day so as to keep down the weight and amount of letters. I love you. I adore you. I always will. Your daddy.
I'm actually going to pause here too. I'm going to grab it
Mm-hmm.
because I forgot that he'd mentioned this and I was just looking at it. But we do have the picture that he sent
Ooh.
from the other ship. Now, I thought this wasn't from his ship, but he references specifically. Yeah. And he points this out. See, he's sending all these little tidbits back to Sweetie so she can see what it was like. This is what he clipped. So we get an idea pretty quickly. I'll put it on the screen too so people can see it. Checkered tablecloth. Just a lot of guys in a room, but this is the one authentically that he does send. And then he draws an arrow. I think it's at the Filipino mess boy because he wants to point out precisely, what the servers look like. Anyway, thought I'd pause there for a sec.
Wednesday evening, January 5, 1949. Dearest Mama, I had a couple of duty skivvies and undershirts, so I thought I'd wash them even though I have enough clothes to keep an army a couple of months. That's what most of the fellows do. They have one set of work clothes to work in and one set clean to put on at night. Then they wash about every 3 days. I think I'll take about half my stuff home when I get back. I don't need it all. I forgot to tell you that I am growing a mustache and beard. Most of the fellows are not going to shave till we get back, so who am I that I should shave? This is only the 11th day, and already I look like the proprietor of a used clothing joint down on South Street. I'll take a picture so you can see the finished product. We have close to 50 more days to go, so I'll look much more like Abe Lincoln than before. There's nothing new to tell you. I could go on and on about how much I miss you and love you, but I've said all that before, so I'll just get this over with and our bills are all paid and we're together. Just remember, I'll always love and want you. Good night, my love. Lou. Friday night, January 7, 1949. Dearest Mama, I don't know what's the matter with me. I just can't seem to sleep or eat. I have practically no appetite at all. I have a bowl of soup for dinner, and I pick around at my supper. I do eat a pretty good breakfast, though, mostly scrambled eggs and bacon or scrapple, coffee, and sometimes cereal, 2 slices of toast. I usually write to you at 7 or 7:30, then go off to bed and read for a while. Then I go to sleep after considerable twisting and turning, then I wake up at 1 or 2 a.m., and then I can't get back to sleep till 3 or 4 a.m. I guess it's just because I have no one to hold on to. I do miss you an awful lot, honey, and I think that's my trouble. I do worry about you and Louis, so take care of yourself. We're supposed to pass Gibraltar tonight around 2 or 3 a.m., so maybe if I wake up tonight I'll at least see something. That's all for now. Take care of yourself. Miss and love me. All my love, Lou. Saturday afternoon, January 8, 1949. Dearest Mama, only a half-day workday. Maybe I can sleep this afternoon. I certainly can't sleep at night. I woke up at 12:30 last night and went up for a sandwich and a cup of coffee. I grilled a piece of roast beef and put a piece of cheese on it, just like a cheese omelet. Boy, was it good. I stayed up till 1:45 shooting the breeze with some of the boys and watched Gibraltar go by. I couldn't see a thing, just lights. We will arrive in Port Said Friday or Saturday. I hope there will be some mail for me. I think this letter is heavy enough for air mail, so I'd better let this finish it. I do love you, honey. If you don't believe it, just you wait, you'll see. Love, Lou.
Nice.
It was very nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I like it. He's like the boys.
Yeah.
And I just see this ship full of a bunch of guys just goofing around and being guys and
Mm-hmm.
hanging out. And I was wondering about how how things were taken care of, like if they were sleeping or in the off time, and they
Right.
seem to take care of the boys.
Mhm.
The
Yeah,
boys.
the boys, yeah.
Yeah, like,
Pretty well.
have things, if they're
Yeah.
hungry or thirsty in the middle of the night.
Coffee breaks in the middle of the day. He gives the
And
scheduled
yes, let's
coffee
talk
break.
about the coffee
Coffee
break.
break. So
Like, if there's yes,
he's taking
right?
coffee breaks. Yeah. Mhm.
And that's actually about the time that I have coffee, like,
Mhm.
during the day, I'll drink oh, man, I
Yep.
drink so much coffee, it's a problem. Like, in the morning, and then about 10, and then about
Mhm.
1, no, and
Yep.
maybe at 4 if, I don't know.
Mhm.
But that's kinda fun. It's they have their little schedule. It's and they have coffee if they need it, which is
Mhm.
wonderful.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing how relatable things are because here's an experience, sailing across the ocean on an oil tanker after World War II, and we get it presented to us in such layman's terms, in such a relatable form by Lou, where he's describing the scene so perfectly, and he is not of a huge amount of words. Sweetie writes books. He doesn't provide too much, but just enough where I think we can just all kind of picture, being on board, and then these relatable things like just the coffee breaks, the schedule, and he illustrates all of that. He's taking the time to explain to his wife what it's like. Also, he's growing a beard and a mustache, and he referred to himself that he might look like Abe Lincoln at a certain point. Now, from the full collection, there are very few photos of Lou with a mustache or a beard, but these are the ones that are. So I'm going to go back to the photos a little bit here so we can see some of the progression. I didn't want to show these too early because he definitely has moved along with his beard and mustache a bit. I love this one on the top of the ship.
That is
Of
such
him.
a cool ooh, 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 ooh.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this one because
Mm-hmm.
there is this beautiful center line.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's right through the
Yeah.
center of the photo,
Verticals. Yeah.
and it's, like, just a perfect proportion.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
looks really awesome, and I wanna point out these, like, lines coming down, obviously there's,
Mm-hmm.
like, probably these wires
Mm-hmm.
holding up towers and whatnot, and
Yeah.
he is very long, very lanky man.
Mm-hmm.
It just very like, just the all of the elements in this picture.
It's a great photo.
I know, and then you know what it
Yeah.
was? He's like, "Here, take a picture of me." Tossed his camera to one of the boys, and they were
Right.
just like,
Yeah.
"Cool," and not,
Yeah.
took one
Yeah.
picture. He
Mhm.
wasn't like, "Okay, pose like this. Now
Yeah.
do one of these." He
Yeah.
was like, "Here's a picture, and look at how perfect."
Yep. But it is
I
not
love
my
it.
favorite photo in the collection. It's up there. It's amazing that they don't this is not a professional photographer, and they kinda look like they are, but they're totally candid shots, and I love, love, love my absolute favorite is this one, because in this one, we can see the close-up of the beard and the mustache that he's growing out.
That's a great picture.
Yeah, I think this is my favorite,
This
you
is a
know?
really good and that might be the cap that he bought
Mhm.
before he left for his trip.
Yep.
Oh, and for our audio listeners,
Mhm.
please visit the
Yep.
website. These are some really awesome pictures.
Mhm. Yeah, they're of a time, and where they're headed, let's just say the world's changed a lot from when these letters were written to where their destination's gonna be. So, I don't know how many photos really survive from really any of the oil tankers from the crew. They're probably in attics. There's probably some grandparents, great-grandparents that have these up in the attics, but they're rare, these candid shots from, the oil tanker, and the fact that he labels them all. I believe he called this one the beard or the mustache because, he tends to just have a sense of humor in labeling the photos as well. And
Honestly,
then
though, that picture, that look,
yeah.
I can see Lewis. The
Yeah.
Lewis that I know. The Lewis that I
Mhm.
know today,
Yeah.
I kinda see that look.
Mhm. And then he's messing around a bit. So,
And there we go. And today I took my first big key wrap.
there you go. Yeah,
You know
that's
what I
that
mean?
photo, right? Yeah.
First,
Mhm.
like, oh, and that's a funny one.
Yeah.
This is a funny one. I like it.
Mhm. Yeah. So we will have more pictures of the sites as they're going through. If he's labeled any as Gibraltar, I will put them on the website. The main thing here is he writes in his letter, they pass by at night. So we just kind of see some lights. Sometimes it's just like there's a box in the middle of the ocean and he says, this is a particular thing outside what they're looking at. So go through the photos on the website for all of these. We'll show some of them again as the letters make mention of these things. But when they go through Gibraltar, it's at night. And that also leads, Jamie, to the question of the route, which we're going to get into this question right after this last letter that we're going to go into, because we're in the last little portion here. And then I want to bring up the map. So if individuals were concerned about where is everything, I'd like to see a map. I have a very, very special and historic map to show everybody. And Jamie, you haven't seen this one yet, so I know you're going to be excited to see it. But we'll continue on with Lou's tale here.
SS Atlantic Transporter, Sunday evening, January 9, 1949. Dearest Mama, what a wonderful day this has been. I didn't get up for breakfast. I slept right through till 12:30. I went up and had a bowl of chicken soup and came right back and hit the sack and slept till 5:15. One of the fellows woke me up for supper. I had a large plate of chicken a la king and rice. There was more chicken than anything. It was good, but I just couldn't clean my plate up. I did have a plate of pineapple ice cream and a couple of cookies, though. I guess that will help. I was up at 12 o'clock last night in time to see Algiers, Algeria go by. It looked like Coney Island. I could see a roller coaster outlined in lights. We are now off the coast of Africa, northern, so if you have a map there, you can see just about where we are. We are supposed to hit Port Said on Thursday. We will probably take on water there. I'm almost sure there will be no shore leave, although I hope we get a chance to go ashore for a while. I have 4 rolls of film with me, and I'd like to go get some good pictures to show you. Well, I guess that's all for now. I have a pair of undies to fix, so I guess I might as well go to it. With so much sleep today, I guess I'll be up half the night again. So until tomorrow, I love you with all my heart, and I miss you like hell. Your own, Lou.
How
Yeah.
sweet.
But with regards to he makes mention of a few things here, and that's why I wanted to leave the map for the end. That's the last letter we're going to hear in this episode. Reminder to everybody, 3 episodes straight of this. So if you're enjoying the content now, don't miss next week and the week thereafter. We're going to get the whole trip here. But I wanted to go to the map, and I also like that he mentions the rolls of film, because we just looked at some of the pictures from those rolls of film that he sent. But I want to bring up the map. Now, I was putting a map together, and I'm going to show that actually in the next episode when we've concluded some of the travels here, so people can see the path of this particular ship. But I have a historic artifact to show specifically with regards to the 40s. I'd just like to take a moment to thank the help of the guys over at Peddler's Village in Lahaska, Pennsylvania, at the What's in a Name store. That's literally the name of the shop. They focus on family crests and they focus on maps. What's really amazing is I mentioned to them what I was working on. I've gotten some maps from them before, and they indicated that they might have something that I might be interested in. So I said, well, show me what you have, of course. It was just cool to look at, even if I wasn't going to get it. And I did decide ultimately to purchase this because it's a historic map. So let me bring up a picture of it on screen. Now, this was produced by Rand McNally. Remember, we've looked at some maps over the course of the podcast that were, I think, from 1946, the traveling maps. This map is from 1940, so this is right before the war. And this was produced to give some information to individuals, and I will zoom in on this map here so we can see different parts. This is the news map of Europe, and it was created by the Richfield Oil Company. So it's a very particular map. And as I zoom in, it's hard to see from the outset, but we can see a full map of Europe. Okay, and I want to draw everybody's attention towards the lower portion of the map for the Mediterranean Sea. And as I zoom in, Jamie, I think you're going to see why. There's a lot of different markings here. There are some ships here in the ocean leading into the Mediterranean Sea, and there's some dotted lines that are moving through. This map was produced by the Richfield Oil Company because this is the precise path of the oil tankers in World War II. So we can assume that in 1949, they're probably following the same path. So this is an authentic 80-year-old map showing the precise path of oil tankers specifically. The little airplane marks that are on the land here indicate the bases of where the Allied forces had bases. So this is an incredible map for a number of reasons. We're not even focused on the bases, but we can actually see all the ships in the channel. This is all the setup for World War II, where all the bases would have been in France. And because this was made in 40, this is before the United States gets involved. So this was produced, and on the backside of this map is a lot of information about airplanes. So Lou being naval air, there's the Richfield Lobo there, Richfield News Map of Europe. It's to show the public, here's what's going on in Europe. While the war has broken out, and as it started in 1939, this is a 1940 map. This is to give people in America the idea of what's occurring. But the relevant part here is because it's created by an oil company, it shows the path of the tankers. And there's that dotted line leading into the Strait of Gibraltar. So following where Lou is, he's saying he's going past Algeria. And we actually we can see there was a base there. Here's that spot, Algeria. So he's passing by. He's saying he saw the Ferris wheel. They're at this point because we can see Alger as a little dot there on the map is appearing. So when we're looking at Lou's pathway, this is exactly where they were going. This was the established route of the oil tankers. I thought this map was too cool not to add to the collection. It's a rare piece in itself.
It's of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, I mean, it was what, 8 years before, but 8 years prior, but still it's
pretty much as close as you're going to get.
Yeah, you cannot get much closer than that.
Nailed it. So thank you to What's in a Name for saying they had this in the collections. They pulled this out of a special drawer, and I said, oh my gosh, it's an oil tanker map from within this time period. This is exactly where he is. So even if we were like, well, I wonder how close the ships get to the coast, dotted line, we can see exactly how close that they get to the coast. So I'll put some snapshots of this on the website. He mentions that they're heading to Port Said. So to give everybody a good idea as to where that is, on the other section of this map, it's so perfect. It's so perfect. It has a breakout of the Middle East here in the one portion.
It's really cool.
It's unbelievable. I couldn't believe.
I am forever in awe of like how you find these things at the certain time.
Meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How did they have this map at this time? Well, we're going to go over this subject matter. Yeah. Port Said is, I believe it's part of Egypt. So if everybody remembers where the Nile River is, if you remember back to maybe elementary, middle school, we were looking at maps of the world, things like that. Head past Greece. And the way this works, and this is going to be marked on the map that I have specific for Lou's journey, Port Said is on the northern coast. And then as you head into the Red Sea, at that peninsula that's there, that's the Suez Canal. So one thing to immediately dispel from your mind is that the Suez Canal is somewhere in the northern part. It's not. So the northern part, the big port here at the top facing out into the Mediterranean, is Port Said, and that's where he's headed. That's where he's hoping to pick up the mail. That's where he's thinking there might not be short leave. That's where the water is going on. So if people are following, if you're listening to the audio and you have a great knowledge of geography, there you go. Everybody else, it's really worth watching the YouTube video for this or going to the website and taking a look at this. But what an incredible historic artifact to use and to know these things precisely as they were. And then, of course, in some of these screenshots, if you're really into World War II, you'll probably want to see from some of these screenshots where some of these bases were. So
yeah, actually, when you were going over, my children and I did some World War II history this year, and we were talking about we're talking about some of the significant battles, and so I was looking here to see like in France and on the border between France and Germany, and like this is an incredible map, and you found it at just the perfect time. I'm always in awe of you.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Yeah, it's just a really great map, and I said I was really happy to share some of the content with the audience here. So those guys know their maps. The minute I say one map, you go straight to it, and that includes all the maps of the 19th century. So if you're ever in the Philadelphia area, you're in Lahaska, go to What's in a Name. Tell them what part of the world you want to see original maps from, and they will help you out with that journey. Absolutely. But yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was like, it's from a tanker, and it's got biplanes on the back. I didn't even show the backside of the map at some point. Maybe I will. But yeah, it's got this great imagery. So wanted to end this episode with the map, as now Lou is not just in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, as he was for a number of these letters. Now we're going past Algeria, and we're going to get to see more photos. So I hope you stay with us next week as we continue with Lou's story this summer, as we take a summer cruise on an oil tanker out into the Mediterranean, and continue with that story next week. Everybody, thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe to the Love Sweetie podcast on YouTube. Please leave a review on our audio channels if you can, and we'll see you next week. Bye.